I am not traumatized. I never had actually trauma in my life. That is a lot of the times what I heard when I started working with some of my clients. It's unfortunately, this is a sign of this almost like a trauma devouring the whole or the majority of the therapeutic industry. And then we have people who could solve their problems if they went to a therapist, but they are not seeking therapy precisely because they don't think that they are traumatized. But therapy is a service, and this is what I want to bring forward to. The heart of the therapeutic service is to solve someone's problem. I am a problem solver. So you come to my therapeutic service, you are bringing in some of the things that you keep on struggling with, and together with my objective feedback and with you presenting the life that you have now, we are trying to find a solution for the current problems that you're experiencing via working on an action plan that you can implement in your life. So the question is not, are you traumatized? Are you like heavily struggling? Actually, I would say people procrastinate going to a professional when actually, if they didn't procrastinate and if they went to a therapy, let's say a few months earlier, the problem wouldn't get that bad. So let's think about a very different diagnostic for therapy, for seeking therapeutic help. The question is, are you struggling with a certain patterns in your life? Are certain relationships keep on repeating themselves? Certain situations are on the loop and you just feel like, I am stuck. Okay, if you feel a therapy could be helpful, then start seeking a therapist. That's going to be a match for you, because what is really happening? So let's say when a person comes to a therapeutic session with me, before the session, I always ask my clients, and it's very visible and transparent on my website, that I will ask you actually few questions for you to think about and reflect on a few questions. I'm going to be asking questions about your actual self-care, your actual relationships, and the facts from your past. So we're not going to be focusing only on the present moment. We will speak a little bit about your past because I need to know some facts. But also we're going to think about how are you really looking after yourself? Because based on these, I'm going to be able to see basically what are your actual habitual thoughts? What's your inner dialogue? It's going to be very transparent from if you're going to really answer these questions. What are your habitual emotional states? 100%. So we'll have to look at these emotional states and think about, okay, is there like a lot of an anxiety? Okay, if there's a lot of an anxiety, let's look at the actual situations that this anxiety is created by, and let's see actually what is happening beneath that. And also, potentially, let's say if a person is struggling with an anxiety, for example, they might not have that much capacity, for example, for love or receiving love. So in the action plan, for example, we would focus on that as well. So your habitual emotional states and also your habitual behaviors. So we're going to look at people pleasing, procrastination, avoiding conflict, perfectionism, withdrawal, whatever that is. But you will see that your physical actions in your everyday life are heavily impacted by those emotional states, those repeated emotional states, and by the repeated habitual thoughts. And of course, sometimes those emotional states and habitual thoughts, they will be stemming from trauma that you experience 100%, but sometimes they'll be simply a result of your conditioning in childhood. And this is what we're going to be looking at. Not to blame your parents, but actually for you as an adult to take the agency and start working on these habitual thoughts and habitual emotional states and habitual actions to change them and therefore create a different results in your life. So Like I said, the origins or the root of these patterns could be anything. And sometimes it's almost like you don't want to get into the whole rabbit hole of seeking the root of these patterns, because sometimes there could be a lot of factors, and sometimes we want to seek the root of the pattern, to avoid the actual work. So we don't do that, not in my sessions, not with my clients. But also, when a client comes to the session with me, we also look at their natural strengths, because from all the habitual thoughts and habitual emotional states and those habitual actions, you're going to also have natural strengths emerging when you're going to be talking about the past, when you're going to be talking about your current self-care and the relationships that you have in your life. All of that will be quite visible for me as an objective observer of that story that you're telling me. I'm going to see, okay, what problems you already overcome, how good you are at this and that at the other. So how did you learn to, let's say, overcome a particular situations that other people might really find very difficult? And all of that is going to be crucial for you to become very aware of your natural strengths. So when you know your, let's say, natural conditioned blind spots, and then you're becoming aware of your natural strengths, then the problem solving of the struggles that you have in your life are becoming slightly more clearer, because suddenly you see, like, okay, these are the blind spots objectively from what I can see now. These are the things that I definitely do well. Okay, let's use that. And a lot of the times, this is how we create a plan with a client in the first session already, when we're talking about, okay, so this is how your life looks like now. This is your schedule. Let's think about what sort of inner actions you can maybe start doing differently. So having different thoughts in particular situations, having to maybe practice certain or introducing certain situations in your life that will promote more of maybe positive emotional states. And usually when we do even a little bit of that, a client will start doing a little bit of that, already new actions will start forming quite naturally from those new thoughts and from those new emotional experiences. So this is really important, that you will become aware that with the right therapist, it's almost like you don't have to build a whole action plan and changing everything. No, actually, sometimes what I notice is the lightest touch creates the most significant changes. So I don't really overwhelm my client's nervous system with too much of like a physical work. It's more like the inner work and how they really respond and react. And already I will tell my clients, like I'm telling you, that will cost you a lot of energy and you will feel tired. When you're doing this type of therapeutic work, you need a lot of rest. So I always tell my clients that self-care whilst you're doing therapy and whilst you're implementing the plan is crucial, absolutely 100% crucial. So now you know that therapy is not a trauma diagnostic, although if someone focuses on that, that is their thing and that's absolutely fine. However, therapy is supposed to solve the problem. And of course, for example, I as a therapist, I am very good at solving the problems that are stemming from trauma, because I had a lot of clients who had been traumatized in childhood, adolescence, or in adult life, yes, but also because of that actually more complex experiences, I can also help to solve problems that are, let's say, less complex or require lighter touch. So in terms of therapy, you can think of maybe I just need 1 or 2 sessions and this is it. Because guys, I want you to think about tailoring therapy for yourself rather than you trying to fit into someone else's framework. Think of it, okay, I have this problem. Is there a therapist who can solve that problem in 1 or 2 sessions? And if, for example, you will come to me, in the first session, I'll be able to tell you more or less how much time you will need to potentially solve that problem. It will be a matter of weeks with certain people, and by weeks I mean like 8 weeks, so it will be like 2 months, 3 months, something like that. But once you start really being very committed to the plan, it will be just a matter of time. So like I said, weeks. And I'll be able to give you that time frame because, like I said, I work almost a decade in that industry. So I know I can see a client who is committed to the work and can do really a good work, and I'll be like, okay, you can do it in usually 4 to 8 weeks time if you're going to really commit to that plan that we just spoke about. So I'm going to be able to give you the time frame, but also going to be able to send you a email that as a reminder of the plan that we agreed on and also the neuroscience behind it. So if you feel like you want to book a session with me, 1 or 2 sessions sometimes could be absolutely enough for your specific problem. Then you've got the links down below. Also, you can check my Patreon account. Otherwise, like, share, and subscribe as always. And I'm going to see you in my next video. Bye-bye.